All right. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining me tonight. I am Jennifer Smith, your friendly neighborhood naturopath. I am not a medical doctor, and this information has not been evaluated by the FDA. Therefore, it is not intended to cure, treat, diagnose, or prevent any disease. This is for general educational purposes only. So please speak with your healthcare practitioner for advice specific to your unique condition. Tonight we are going to discuss my favorite peptide, glutathione. So we've got 30 minutes of content followed by 9 minutes of Q&A that I'll read from the chat, and we'll wrap it all up in 39 minutes. So glutathione is actually a tripeptide comprised of glycine, cysteine, and glutamic acid. And you don't need to know all that, but this marvelous molecule is produced in the liver, and it's known as the body's master antioxidant and master detoxer. So, just some of glutathione's benefits include deep immune support, like deep foundational immune support, also antioxidant protection. So, think of it as gobbling up free radicals. It's also neuroprotectant. So, think brain and spinal cord and nerves. Glutathione promotes the detoxification of harmful toxins like pesticides, heavy metals, even mold, mercury, and other environmental toxins or pollutants. Glutathione also helps the body to recover from alcohol use, pharmaceutical drugs, food additives, all kinds of things that we come in contact with on a daily basis. So, I always say that most health conditions boil down to two things: toxicity and deficiency. And glutathione can help with both. I guess that's why I love it so much. So, as we age, we're exposed to certain, toxins, including cigarette smoking, even secondhand smoke. We have certain nutrient deficiencies, sleep deficiencies, and more. And, all those things, and as well as the other things I mentioned, can cause our glutathione levels to decline. I mean, just kind of the general aging process. And in fact, there are quite a few health conditions that are directly linked to glutathione deficiency. Alzheimer's, Parkinson's disease, cancer, diabetes, and others. And that's pretty easy to look up. I mean, you can just Google health conditions linked to glutathione deficiency, and you'll find all those and more. So. And you've also heard me say, don't take it if you can make it. And so, what I mean by that is, regardless of whether it's vitamin D or collagen or nitric oxide, GHK copper peptide, or glutathione, and there are others, you're always going to be better off by increasing your own endogenous or native levels of those nutrient molecules rather than taking an exogenous supplement. If you need to take a supplement, of course, that's fine, but you're always going to assimilate it better if you elevate it yourself within your body. So, but in the case of exogenous forms of glutathione supplementation, some of those forms include, intravenous use. So, there are a lot of health clinics and certainly all the holistic cancer clinics. They will give their patients glutathione IVs. And again, if you need it, absolutely. I mean, cancer is certainly a disease of toxicity and deficiency. But there are definitely some pitfalls to all forms of exogenous glutathione supplementation. So when it comes to IV use, a couple of things with that. For one, it's invasive. It's piercing the skin. It's expensive. It only has a 7-minute half-life, so you're kind of getting this surge of glutathione, and then it starts to, slow way down and deplete. So within a couple of hours, it's gone out of your body. And also, my old concern is always where's that glutathione coming from? What is the source of that? And then also, what else is in it? So what stabilizers are in it? Is there aluminum? Is there polyethylene glycol? What else is in it is always my concern. But still, even if it is a good clean source of glutathione, it's still, like I said, expensive and invasive and all of that. But and then the short half-life. There's also capsule form. You can buy capsule form of glutathione, and lots of people will do that, but it eats up your stomach acid, excuse me, eats up about 80% of the glutathione in capsule form. So you're not left with a whole lot. So you have to take a lot of it for that reason. Um, you can also use glutathione suppositories. No, thank you. In my practice, I used to carry a liposomal form of glutathione. It was nanoemulsified and liposomal. And the problem with that is it was, first of all, it was is pretty expensive, and it had to be refrigerated as soon as it was opened, and it tasted horrible, like everybody hated it. And it had to be administered 3 times a day. So, again, it was good, but not ideal. And so, you can also elevate your own native endogenous glutathione levels with some other ways by you can consume cruciferous vegetables, those foods that contain sulfuric compounds like broccoli, cabbage, Brussels sprouts. Let's see what else. Kale, garlic, contains those sulfuric compounds. So those kind of foods will help elevate your own native or endogenous levels of glutathione a little bit. There are a few foods that actually contain glutathione, not a whole lot. And they don't, each of those foods don't contain a whole lot of glutathione, but like spinach, avocados, um, let's see, spinach, avocados, okra, and asparagus. So those foods contain a little bit of glutathione. So that's good. And then also, if you take the amino acid NAC, N-acetylcysteine, which a lot of people became familiar with N-acetylcysteine during the COVID years because that was helpful for COVID. But what N-acetylcysteine is, that amino acid, it's actually the precursor to glutathione. Again, with that, it takes a little while to get it built up into your body to begin producing optimal levels of glutathione. But in fact, hospitals have historically given NAC to patients who come in with Tylenol poisoning, or I should say acetaminophen poisoning, because that helps build up your glutathione levels and help you to detox that out of the body. So, in fact, and I don't know why they don't just give glutathione IVs. It would be faster, and maybe some do. I'm not sure, but I know they've always given N-acetylcysteine for Tylenol poisoning. And by the way, everything or Tylenol overdose, I should say, but every pharmaceutical drug not only has side effects, of course, and regardless of whether it's over the counter or prescription, but they all have to be processed through the liver and or kidneys. So, when they're processed through the liver, that helps, that depletes your glutathione levels. And then also, every drug has what is referred to as DINS. It's DINDS, which stands for drug-induced nutrient depletion. And in the case of acetaminophen, or also known as Tylenol, that depletes your glutathione levels and harms the liver. So again, there's all kinds of dots you can connect there, but yeah, every pharmaceutical drug has at least one nutrient depletion, drug-induced nutrient depletion. So when you're depleted of glutathione, that leads to all kinds of health conditions. So anyhow, and in fact, you may have heard of the book. Well, it was actually a study that was turned into a book, and then it was later turned into a movie, a documentary movie, and then a Netflix series, and it was called The Blue Zones. And what that was a gentleman, there was a man who was fascinated with the fact that there were like pockets throughout the world. There were 5 at that time. Now there are 6 pockets where people commonly live to be centenarians. That's, a person who lives to be 100 years old or older, but yet they're healthy. They're, healthy, active centenarians. And so he set out to study those groups of people and find out what made them tick, what made them live such long, healthy lives. And it was a number of things. I mean, for one, they all ate a, mostly clean, healthy diet. They weren't eating processed foods like we tend to eat in America. They weren't all sitting around looking at social media and, drinking beer and smoking cigarettes and eating McDonald's. They were outside, they were getting fresh air, they were moving their bodies. They weren't at the gym necessarily exercising, most of them, but they were just getting bodily movement because a lot of them lived on large patches of land. Some of them had small farms. Others, they didn't have cars. They pretty much walked everywhere, and they grew a lot of their own food. So that was, those were some of the things they all had in common. But another thing that they all had in common that he discovered is that they all had higher levels of glutathione than most people. So I thought that was quite interesting. Glutathione is levels are directly tied to longevity. So if you're, so those were some ways that you can kind of help elevate your native levels of glutathione a little bit. But if you're familiar with LifeWave's phototherapy patch technology, you may or may not know that one of the many side benefits of X39 is that it can elevate your endogenous levels of glutathione by about 30%. So none of the patches have any side effects, but they all have multiple side benefits. And so one of the many side benefits of X39 is that it elevates your endogenous glutathione levels or native levels by about 30%. Now, 30% is not a whole lot, but if you're a person has had maybe they haven't led the best lifestyle, maybe they haven't eaten a healthy diet, maybe they've underwent a lot of medical procedures, maybe a lot of surgeries, and therefore anesthesia, things like that, a lot of pharmaceutical drugs, fast food, all the things, then that 30% can be kind of quite a lot for that person, perhaps. Or if a person has never done any form of cleansing or detoxing before, that 30% can be a fair amount. So for that reason, we recommend that people patch, they start out with just X39 and or maybe X39 and Eon. Those two patches work so well together. So yeah, elevating glutathione levels by about 30%, that's a really good thing. But get used to that for about a month or so, and then you might consider the glutathione patch. So the glutathione patch, this is no joke. This patch can elevate your native or endogenous glutathione levels by an average of about 300% over a 24-hour period. So even though you only wear the patches for 12 hours, even after you've removed that glutathione patch after 12 hours, your liver is still producing more optimal levels of glutathione. So, in fact, one of the women in the clinical studies, her glutathione levels elevated by over 600%, but 300% was the average. So, again, how does this work if you're not familiar with these patches? Well, again, we wear the patches for 12 hours on and 12 hours off while we're fully hydrated. And each patch has its own 12-hour window. So in some of the patches are designed for daytime use only, some are for nighttime only, and then there are a few that can be worn either or, day or night. So for example, your 12-hour window might be 9 to 9. So at 9 a.m., you'll apply your daytime patches to clean, dry skin. Make sure you're well hydrated, and then at 9 p.m. you'll remove those patches and replace them with nighttime patches, maybe or not. It's your choice. But the key is also being fully hydrated. So being patient, being consistent, and being well hydrated. And a good rule of thumb with regard to hydration is to drink half your weight in ounces of clean, pure water per day, and preferably get some healthy electrolytes in at least one of those glasses. So half your weight in ounces. So in other words, a 160-pound person would drink 80 ounces of water per day. And ideally, you want to spread that water out. In other words, instead of waiting till you're parched and you're dehydrated and then just chugging 80 ounces of water, you want to spread that out. Maybe take sips or, maybe 4, 5, 6 ounces at a time and just kind of spread that out throughout the day. But oftentimes people say, well, gosh, I don't like water. I'm never thirsty or whatever the case is. But if you don't like water, there's probably a reason for that. Maybe you're drinking tap water that's full of fluoride and chlorine and pharmaceuticals and pesticides and whatever else. So I can understand why you may not like that. So getting some clean, pure, filtered water is ideal, or maybe spring water, reverse osmosis, distilled water. I personally drink Berkey water, so and I love the fact that it filters out the fluoride. But lots of options out there. But half your weight in ounces per day is ideal, and you will grow to like water. You may want to add maybe some, I don't know, some fruit juice to some of it or something, maybe a little squeeze of fresh lemon or something to help. But that's very, very important. And I've been saying that for years, even before I was introduced to this wonderful patch technology, because even though you may not like water, every organ, every cell, every gland, every tissue, every bone in your body does like water. And our bodies are made of somewhere between like 70 and 90% of water. Different organs and glands and bodily systems contain more water than others. So that's the reason for that range. But yeah, you definitely want to hydrate yourself, regardless of whether or not you're patching. But anyway, so yeah, that's the need for glutathione is, I think, greater than ever. It's such an important molecule, and it's just because our bodies are, we're exposed to more toxins than we ever have been before, and there are toxins in our food, in our water, in the sky, in our personal care products, in our clothing, in home furnishings and medications and all kinds of things. And so just to help our body a little bit, to help release those toxins, help to eliminate free radicals, to provide deep immune support, and so much more neurological support, for the nerves, the brain. There's so many benefits to glutathione. So, and again, you're always going to be better off to elevate your own native or endogenous forms of glutathione versus taking a supplement. And the best way I've ever found is with the glutathione patch. So with that being said, I'll get into Q&A here, and we have plenty of time, so I will check that and just see what we've got here. Okay. Is glutathione worn day or night? Good question. The glutathione patch. So LifeWave says that the glutathione patch can be worn day or night, either or. It's one of those either or patches. I personally recommend that the glutathione patch be worn during the daytime. The reason for that is because when your body releases toxins from the liver and otherwise, that all goes into the lymphatic system, and your lymphatic system is kind of your primary, your main garbage disposal, your main sewage system for the body. And so, but the problem is well, in fact, you've got more lymphatic fluid in your body than you have blood, like 4 times more. So you've got lymph nodes and lymphatic fluid throughout your entire body. And but it does not have a pump. And so your lymphatic fluid, it's only moving if you're moving. So most of us aren't moving a whole lot when we're sleeping. So that's why I recommend the glutathione patch for daytime use, because even though the glutathione patch can elevate your endogenous glutathione levels by an average of 300% over a 24-hour period, even though you're only wearing the patch for 12 hours, it's still continuing. The majority of that elevation is done during those first 12 hours while you are wearing the glutathione patch. So it's going to be a little more intense then. So because of the detox factor, I do recommend wearing the glutathione patch during the daytime. It's just, some people might report maybe waking up with like a headache if they wear the glutathione patch at night. So anyway, but yeah, I mean, most people are fine to wear it day and night. I just think you get a little more out of it, a little more bang for your buck if you wear it during the daytime. Okay. If someone has been on X39 and Eon for a while, and they have side effects when they add glutathione. What do? Okay. None of the patches have side effects. So they all have a lot of side benefits, but none of them have side effects. It sounds like maybe that person is having a bit of like a detox reaction. Maybe it could be maybe full on Herxheimer reaction. And again, I always kind of question is the person using the patches properly? And the biggest thing often goes back to hydration. So if a person is not drinking enough water, they that can give that with that problem with the glutathione patch. This patch it's a powerful patch. The glutathione patch is no joke. As a matter of fact, several years ago, my husband was involved in a terrible freak accident, which resulted in multiple back-to-back surgeries with anesthesia and all kinds of meds afterwards. And so when I was introduced to these patches, I thought, oh my gosh, this is great. This will be a great way for me to help easily detox him in a non-invasive manner from all the medications and anesthesia that he had endured. And so I started patching him up right out of the gate with, I think I did X39, Eon, glutathione, and maybe even a couple of others. I'm not sure. I think I was just so excited and a little overzealous, so I just threw them all on him. But I know for a fact I had the glutathione patch on him, and he came to me later on that afternoon and he said, these patches, I'm not feeling good. This is not. I'm not feeling so good on this. And I asked him, I said, well, what's wrong? What do you feel like? And he said, I'm just a little nauseous and headachy. Like I almost feel like I'm sick, like I've got the flu or something. And and I asked him, I said, well, how are you drinking water? And he said, yeah. And I walked into his office, his home office, and looked at the glass of water that I had given him 4 or 5 hours earlier, and there was like maybe an inch drank out of it. So he definitely wasn't drinking enough water. So that's key. And but nevertheless, some people are just really sensitive. Maybe they have been exposed to some, major environmental toxins, or maybe they've just haven't led a real healthy lifestyle over the years, and they've kind of partied like a rock star. They've had all that in them and they're trying to clean up. Or maybe they've never done any form of cleansing or detoxing before. So in that case, they might be a little sensitive. They may need to start with maybe 3 to 6 hours on the glutathione patch right out of the gate. So maybe just start 3, 4, 5, maybe 6 hours on the glutathione patch. Then they can remove that patch and place it in like a little drinking glass, kind of like this, an empty one, of course, and remove it, place the patch in there, and you can cover it with a towel. And then the following day, wear it for another few hours, and then just kind of work your way up to 12 hours, or even skip a day in between. So that might be an option. In fact, I only wear the glutathione patch 3 days a week. I wear it Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And I have cleansed and detoxed before, and I've never ever had a bit of trouble with the patches. Never had any kind of detoxing effect. But nevertheless, I wear glutathione Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and I alternate it with the carnosine patch, which also has some detoxing properties. So I wear carnosine Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, Sunday. But yeah, again, the patch elevates endogenous glutathione levels over a 24-hour period, even though you only wear it for 12 hours. So a lot of people wear it every single day, which is fine. They'll probably live longer than I do and look healthier. I wear it Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and that seems to work just fine for me, for my needs. So hopefully that helps. Um, Why is it called why-age glutathione? That's a good question. That's because you can't trademark the name glutathione. Glutathione has been around since the beginning of time, since humans have been around. And so they can't trademark glutathione because it's a molecule that would almost be like trademarking vitamin D or I don't know, N-acetylcysteine. So that's why it's called the YH glutathione. It's part of the YH series of patches. There are two other patches in that series. And so there's YH Eon and there's YH carnosine, but we just call them by their main names. We call them Eon, carnosine, and glutathione. But anyway, that's the reason for that. So, and I guess we're doing okay on time. I don't see any other questions in there. We certainly have time for at least one more if anyone has one. Nobody? Okay. Well, I'm not sure if I said this or not, but if you are not using this phototherapy patch technology currently, please connect with a person who invited you here so they can help you with the patches and the pricing that's best for you because there are many options. So you can get help from that person if it's not me. And we will not be here next Wednesday for the Wellness Wednesday call because it's Christmas Eve. So we will resume probably not even the following Wednesday because I believe that's New Year's Eve or maybe New Year's Eve. Gosh, I need to look at my calendar. But anyway, normally it's every Wednesday live at 5. So we will for sure skip next Wednesday. And I just want to thank you all for joining me this evening. Merry Christmas. And we will see you in the new year. So thanks again. Bye bye.